Readers Theater again.
This morning we are going to be presenting a Reader's Theater script written by our own Lois Walker called Grandma Verbrugge and the Great Apple Slice Escape. Ladies?
Early one morning, Grandma Verbrugge decided to make an apple pie.
My grandchildren are coming to visit. I want to serve a special treat. Marty and I have collected so many wonderful apples from our orchards. I'll pick out the very best of those apples for a special pie.
So, Grandma Verbrugge prepared 2 pie crusts. Then she found her apple basket on the back porch.
The basket was filled to the brim with many different kinds of apples.
Grandma Verbrugge picked out
the big apples. She picked out
the juicy apples.
I also picked out
both red and green apples.
Soon, Grandma Verbrugge had 4 perfect apples. She had
1 red delicious apple,
1 golden delicious apple,
1 Macintosh apple,
and 1 Granny Smith apple.
Grandma Verbrugge placed the apples on her kitchen cutting board and sliced them into neat little slices.
Then she placed the neat little slices into a pan lined with pie crust.
She mixed the slices with sugar.
She sprinkled the slices with cinnamon.
And I finally dotted them with butter.
Grandma Verbrugge covered the neat little slices with the other pie crust and sealed the edges. Then she took the slicing knife and cut the large letter V into the tip top of the pie.
The letter V for Verbrugge, my special pie made of
1 red delicious apple,
1 yellow delicious apple,
1 Macintosh apple,
and 1 Granny Smith apple.
Grandma Verbrugge sat down to wait for her oven to heat.
Little did I know that at that very moment, the apple slices inside my pie were planning a daring escape.
The apple slices had no intention of being baked in a pie and served to somebody's grandchildren.
The apple slices called a quick meeting.
It was decided that the red delicious slices would get the first chance to search for an escape route and leave the others out of the pies.
Then all the apples joined together and began to chant,
"Oval apple, so nutritious, search, search, red delicious."
And it wasn't too long before a red delicious slice found that letter
V
opening in the tip top of the pie and cried,
"Whee! We're free!"
All of the red delicious slices followed closely behind.
They jumped upon the cutting board. They cheered and shouted, yelled and roared.
but Grandma Verbrugge would have none of it. She eyed them sternly and said,
"One rotten apple spoils the bunch. Get back into that pie at once."
And since the red delicious slices weren't used to being talked to in such a way, they jumped back into the pie without thinking twice.
Once inside the pie, another quick meeting was called. It was decided that the yellow delicious slices should gather together and be the next to try.
The yellow delicious slices vowed to fight their way through the kitchen, no matter what Grandma Verbrugge had to say.
Then all the apples joined together and began to chant.
Yellow delicious, now unite! Yellow delicious, fight, fight, fight!
And it wasn't too long before the yellow delicious slices found that letter
V
opening in the top of the pie and cried,
"Whee! We're free!"
They jumped upon the cutting board. They screamed and shouted and yelled and roared.
Some fell upon the kitchen floor and bounded for the kitchen door.
But Grandma Verbrugge would have none of it. She placed her hands firmly upon her hips and said,
"You are not the apples of my eye, so jump right back into that pie."
And since the yellow delicious slices weren't used to being talked to in such a way, they jumped back into the pie without thinking twice.
Inside the pie, a third hasty meeting was called. All the apples were getting mighty worried.
Finally, the Macintosh slices decided to make a run for it. They headed off toward the top of the pie.
Then all the apples joined together and began to chant, "Worried apples, Macintosh!
Macintosh slices reached that letter
V!
opening in the tip-top of the pie and cried.
Whee! We're free! They jumped upon the cutting board, they cheered and shouted, yelled and roared.
Some jumped upon the kitchen floor and bounded for the kitchen door.
Some wandered out beyond the brink. Some fell into the kitchen sink.
But Grandma Berbrugge would have none of it. She got down on her hands and knees, scooped up the Macintosh slices and said,
If you won't let me be the boss, I'll turn you into applesauce.
Now the Granny Smith slices had been waiting much too long inside the pie and were starting to panic.
Suddenly, and without warning, one of the slices charged wildly upward. All of the remaining slices followed close behind.
And as they ran, they chanted,
Shiny apple, tart and green, lead us from this scene.
And it wasn't too long before all the slices reached that letter
V,
opening in the tip top of the pie and cried.
Whee! We're free!
they jumped upon the cutting board, they cheered and shouted, yelled and roared.
Some jumped upon the kitchen floor and bounded for the kitchen door.
Some wandered out beyond the brink. Some fell into the sink.
Some sighed, we finally have our wish. Some fell into the dog's dish.
But this time, Grandma Berbrugge was overwhelmed.
There were just too many slices, and they were all over the place. Grandma Berbrugge cried.
Stop! Come back, you silly slices!
The apple slices ran helter-skelter. They ran all over the place.
And then there was silence.
Grandma Berbrugge searched for those slices. She looked high and low, but there wasn't
A red, delicious slice.
A yellow, delicious slice.
A Macintosh slice,
Or a Granny Smith slice.
to be found anywhere.
Soon Grandma Berbrugge's grandchildren finally came to call.
First came Carter, then Keegan and Christine, then Tayton and Andrew, with Lucy between. Next, Riley and Levi gave Grandma a hug and cried,
Mary's coming. She's bringing Junebug.
They were finally all there. Just count them, 9. And all of the 9 were ready to dine.
But only 8 found a fork and a plate.
And all but June sat down to take.
A fresh baked slice of simply great
ooey gooey chocolate cake.
The June bug smiled and, looking quite sly, reached for her bottle, as if to imply,
Since she was the apple of everyone's eye, she had no need of cake or pie.
But she did wish those apples were not running loose, for they would have made darn good
Apple juice! It's a way to get boys and girls to read. It's a way to motivate reluctant readers, because every child likes to put on a show and tell a story, but they may not be very good at memorizing and being in a play. And so Readers' Theater has become very important in the schools, because teachers can get their children up and reading and presenting a story to their other classmates or the whole school or the parents. And so it's really mushrooming, and I love it. It's so much fun. And because of our age, since we're all grandmas, we don't memorize so well anymore. So we love Readers'